In our previous tutorial, we used the Spring's bean factory object in order to instantiate an object of our own. We did not use the new, we used a Spring API using the bean factory object. So in this tutorial, first of all, I'd like to introduce you to another object called ApplicationContext. This ApplicationContext is bean factory's big brother. It does everything that the bean factory does, but it also has some additional functionality. It has features like event notification, AOP, and other functionalities. We will have a look at those functionalities later on. But the point here is that the application context does all the things that the Bean Factory does and more. Also, since there is not a huge difference in the cost and as far as performance is concerned, you would want to go with the application context, and you would want to use the Bean Factory only when the resources are very crucial. So now in this case, let me change this line of code to use the application context, but then I only need to change this part where I'm actually reading the configuration from Spring. Apart from this, all the other syntax remains the same. I can also do a get bean for the application context, just like I'm doing a get bean for the bean factory. So the way I instantiate an application context is call this context equals. Now again, just like the bean factory, the application context is also an interface, and you have different implementations depending on your configuration. So there is this object called class path XML application context, which is similar to what we are doing here. We are picking up an XML from the actual class path of our application. So here what I'll do is I'll say new class path XML application context. Now the advantage of using the class path XML application context is you don't have to send a new file system resource as a parameter. You can just specify a string with the XML file name and it'll pick that up. So I'll just have to pass a string spring.xml. Now of course I'll have to import these two classes, and now instead of factory I will use the context. Save. And another change we need to make is here my spring.xml is in the root of the application. I need to move it to a class path, so let me move this to the src folder here. So now that it's in the class path, now let me run this and make sure that it works fine. Yeah, it's working fine. I'm still able to instantiate the triangle. Okay, now we'll go back to where we ended our previous tutorial. We said that the advantage of having a triangle class instantiated by Spring here, it doesn't really make much sense in this case because a triangle is a very simple object. So in this tutorial, what I'm planning to do is I'm planning to have a member variable for triangle. I'll show you how you can instantiate an object with the member variable preset. So say for example, I have a member variable here called type, and let me generate the getters and setters for this. Okay, so now what I can do with the Spring container is when I'm instantiating an object and I'm getting this triangle object, I can actually preset the value of this type. I can have whatever string I need already instantiated inside this object that I'm getting. And the way I do that is again by using the spring.xml. So here in our spring.xml, okay, I need to close this since we have moved this guy here. Okay, in our spring.xml, I told you this is a blueprint for our object that we're going to create. And this is a very simple blueprint. I'm just given the class name, but I need to extend this blueprint and I need to pre-fill a value for this new member variable that I've added here. So what I'm going to do is here I will close the stack Okay, so inside this tag, I can write a property tag. Property name equals, so the name of the property that I want to preset, which is type, and the value that I want it to be pre-filled as. So here I'll be mentioning the type of the triangle. Just a geometry refresher, there are three types of triangles. One is equilateral, one is isosceles, and one is scalene. So I will say this is a equilateral triangle. I'll close this property. So what I'm doing here is, again, I'm defining what's going to be the blueprint of my bean, and I am also having a preset value for this type member variable. So what's going to happen is, when I ask Spring to get me this triangle object here, what Spring is going to do is it's going to look at this blueprint and says, okay, this guy wants a triangle of this class. It's going to instantiate an object of this class, and then it sees this property tag, so it's going to fill the value which is set over here. It's going to assign it to this property, and then it's going to return me an object that has this value set for this property. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just change the draw method here, and I'm going to print out the type. So I'll say get type. Okay, and I'm going to save this. So if I run this now, there you can see equilateral triangle is drawn. So this value is already set inside the triangle object, so I don't have to set it. So no matter how many properties I have, I don't have to initialize the object every time I need an object. Once I configure it in my spring.xml, it's going to be there and ready. So it's actually like a preset for an object. All the properties are filled in, and I can get the completely prepared object just by running one call to the get bean.